Hello and welcome to another video. This time we're fishing for salmon and sea trout in the northeast of England on the mighty River Tyne. Now today we've come down to the South Tyne to try and catch those elusive magical creatures, salmon and sea trout. Now for those that don't know, salmon, they travel thousands of miles. Some of them were born right here in this pool and they'll come back to this exact same pool to spawn and repeat the life cycle. It's an absolutely incredible journey. Now one of the main things with salmon and to a degree sea trout is they don't feed in fresh water. Now sometimes sea trout do and there's an argument between the two. But salmon, their digestive system will shut down when they're in fresh water and all they're focused on is breeding. So it's really difficult to catch them. You have to agitate them. They have to be in the mood. That's what makes them so difficult, so rewarding, and that's what makes us come back time and time again, even when we draw a blank. Now the River South Tyne hasn't really had that much water in the last few weeks, so it hasn't had a really good flood for a while. However, it still looks in really good nick. It's come up a couple of inches overnight, which is really good news for us because sometimes that little movement in water will encourage the fish to carry on moving up the river and nosy into the pools, into the next one and the next one. And it's that kind of excitement amongst them that generally gets them to take a fly. Let me take you through some of the gear that I'm going to be using for these kind of lower water conditions. Now you don't need heavy kit. I've got two rods with me. Now for the smaller, narrower runs and pools, I've got a 10-foot for a 6-weight with a floating line and a couple of little flies, two little singles, nothing fancy, but I know they do the job and I fish them with confidence, and that's the key. You need to fish with confidence in what you're doing, particularly when you're salmon and sea trout fishing. And then what we move on to next is something called a switch rod. Now these are a midway between a single-handed rod and a two-handed salmon rod. So this particular rod is 11 foot long and you can fish this as a single-handed rod and as a double-handed rod, hence the name switch. So today I'm going to be using this as a two-handed rod. I've got a shooting head system on here. Now this will allow me to cast further on those wider pieces of water where I need to get right onto the far bank with minimal effort. And this is a really, really satisfying way of fishing down a pool. So we have been through with a single-handed rod, and now what I'm going to try is something called nymphing for salmon. Now this is a technique that I picked up on the chalk streams in Hampshire, which is where I live, and this is a really effective method of bringing fish up off the bottom and inducing them to take what is essentially a big heavy nymph. So let's give this a whirl. Now the way you fish this isn't conventional to swinging a fly. You cast slightly upstream, you let the fly sink, and then you hold and you draw it up, and then it kind of flutters up in the current. And it's at that point that a fish is likely to take your fly. So what I want to do down here is just concentrate on that far seam, because I think that's where the fish might be sitting. There we go, I like that already. That's getting down super deep, which is what we want. I think sometimes people will fish over fish and not get down deep enough, and I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. You know, if it's cold or I'm tired and I just can't be bothered. But in salmon fishing, you need to exercise every single method that you have in your armoury to try and get into a fish. So we've moved a little bit further downriver now to some deeper water. The river's much wider down here, and I really want to use the switch rod. And you'll see from the way that I'm fishing, it's minimal effort for maximum distance. So the pool that we've got here is quite long, it's very, very deep. A lot of the fish lie on the far bank and also in the middle, but we want to cover those fish on the far bank as well. So we're maximising our opportunity. And this little outfit is going to be the one that's going to get us to the far bank without breaking our backs with a single-handed rod. So we're going to be using a combination of double spey and single spey casting with this outfit. So let's hit the water and see if we can find a fish. So it's been such a long day, and as you can see, the sun is ridiculously high in the sky. It's been bright all afternoon, and with the river as low as it is, even though there is a tinge of colour, the conditions are kind of against us. So for me, this is last chance saloon. I'm just seen a salmon jump above us. This is salmon fishing. This is what they do. They toy with you. It's been really frustrating. We've seen lots of fish around, lots of sea trout, a few salmon. So I've come and changed tactics. So I've come back to the top of the pool where I was spey casting with the switch rod. I've got the single hander again, and I've got on the salmon nymph that I was using earlier on today, which kind of looks like a reservoir trout fly, but it has this huge heavy tungsten bead in it. And we're just going to bounce that along the bottom and then lift it up through the current and see if we can induce a take from one of those fish that might be lying deeper down. So let's see what happens. That's us for today. It's been a super enjoyable time here on the South Tyne. Despite the lack of connecting with fish, we've seen lots of sea trout, we've seen a few salmon around. I've seen a huge salmon as well that leapt out. There's a good 20 pounds.
Well, you didn't think we were just going to leave it there, did you? Turns out, on that very same day we shot the vlog, in the very same first pool that we went to, a local angler had been out at first light and caught themselves a salmon. Now, we had a shoot the very next day, which meant that we had to offload all the footage, clear the SD cards, recharge all the batteries, and have that kit ready to go for our shoot the following day. Patrick, by the way, was the guy doing a lot of the camera work for the vlog. Thank you, Patrick, you did an absolutely awesome job. So, this angler catching a fish had planted a seed that we should probably just pop down in the morning just to see, if we could catch anything. Salmon, sea trout. To be honest, at this stage, a brown trout would have been absolutely out of this world. So that's what we did. We got up at 3 AM, we were on the river for 4 AM, we didn't have our filming kit with us, and I hooked a salmon. Now, the twist in this story is that it wasn't an Atlantic salmon, it was in fact a pink salmon, so it was an invasive species. Now, these fish were introduced in the 1980s into the rivers in northern Russia that flowed into the Atlantic Ocean. They've spread all the way across the top of Norway, and in the last few years, since 2017, they've been seen in rivers across the UK, particularly on the east coast in Scotland and the northeast of England. They have a really odd cycle, so they are a 2-year cycle fish, so 2017, 2019 and 2021. So the next time we could probably expect to see them would be 2023. Now, the EA state on their website that if you catch one of these fish in English or Welsh waters, then you have to dispatch the fish humanely, don't put it back, and you have to notify your local Environment Agency office. From there, they'll take it away and do some sampling. And that's exactly what we did. The fish was dispatched quickly, humanely, and was collected by an Environment Agency officer that day. Well, there you have it. We got our Tyne silver, albeit the day after we were supposed to, and also it wasn't an Atlantic salmon. It was such an out-of-the-box experience that me and Patrick won't be forgetting that one in a hurry. Patrick, by the way, has his own YouTube channel, which we'll link down below in the description, along with all the kit that we used on the vlog. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.